Oh man, I'm gonna walk you guys through a few steps to have a glorious rising. I thought I'd have a brunch today. I'll talk to you about that meal and the preparations prior to the meal and the sky outside. So I woke up and 6:30, went outside with a cup of coffee that came from beans that were grown in Hawaii with no GMOs and this really rich, fertile soil. Oh, it's just amazing coffee. And I'd put some ghee in it. If anybody's familiar with putting a fat molecule in with the coffee and understands, I think it's called bulletproof coffee, you can look into that idea. I mean, it kind of goes into another theory on diet that I don't necessarily agree with the larger concept of it, but I do enjoy the coffee. So I made myself some coffee, rolled myself up a spliff with, well, I don't know if you could technically call it a spliff. There was some tobacco and mugwort, some cinnamon. It was more of a clove and sage, and a few other herbs that are very relaxing and calming. And so I sat and I listened to some music, and I was looking out at the clouds. It's very cloudy this morning. And after doing that, I came back inside and decided to do clean up the house a little bit and do a little take a bath, whatever. And then I was like, well, let's do like a heavy duty auric field of the house cleansing, you could call it. It's like smudging or saging, but I'll walk you through this in another way so you could understand, as I've spoke to you all about the elements before and different types of ways to cleanse internal and external environments using things such as essential oils, and you can burn sage and you can burn some incense. But there's a prior idea to that, because what those things are, just like when if you were to consume, say, an herbal and healing beer. If you look into Stephen Buhner's work, there's a great book on healing and herbal beers, and what beers are doing is they're bringing the elements of the plants into the system, just like with gin and just like with say tequila. They're bringing elements into the spirit. Where if you use something cleansative, clear, like say Everclear or vodka, there's nothing else in it. So it has a much different effect. And so in the same way, if you're cleaning your house, it's a good idea to sage or smudge or use maybe even Palo Santo. But even Palo Santo is more of a manifestation type bark, where the plant, and I don't want to get into all that too deep here, but I'll do that a little later. But nonetheless, if you were to smudge your house with sage, yes, you're removing spirit, but you're also adding something. And it's not completely cleansative. Just like if you were to drink a tea, right? You would be putting something else in your body. Yes, you'd be cleansing yourself, but you'd also be putting that tea into your body. But if you were to drink, say, distilled water, warm distilled water, you wouldn't be putting anything else into your body. You'd just be removing things. So in the same way, if you were to want to cleanse your house properly and completely, what you would do is take a very high grain alcohol. You could take rubbing alcohol, isopropyl, and high grade 91% they usually sell. Or you could use Everclear, high grade. Basically anything over, I think, 100 proof will light on fire. So, but basically just get the Everclear, and then you get some Epsom salts, and you put it into a bowl. And I had a bowl that I use for a lot of things. It's a brass bowl, and I put that salt in there, and it's a 2-to-1 ratio of the cleansative vodka or alcohol, whatever you're putting in there. So it's clear. You don't want to use any other spirit or substance. And it's a 2-to-1 ratio of the alcohol to the salt. And then you'll light that on fire. and you'll walk around your house with it if you're so brave, if you have enough confidence. Or you could just leave it in the middle of the room, and it's going to burn off all of spirit and energies that were stagnant and left over in your house, or whatever. And it's best to walk through the house with it if you can. And depending on how much is in there, it might burn for 10-15 minutes. And then what I did after I'd felt pretty confident that I'd walked through the whole house and cleansed it all, I went to the next step, which was, while that was still burning, I threw some sage into the mix, because now it's already burnt off everything in the house. So now I threw the sage right into there, and now I've added an element of not only cleanliness, but putting in the spirit into the house of sage. And then I have a Palo Santo, and I have some incense of different flavors and aromas. One of my favorites to do for cleansing, because a lot of people like to use the standard wonderful smell of Nag Champa, but if you find yourself some camphor incense, those are really wonderful for cleaning too. So I burned some camphor incense, and as the fire was going down and most of everything had burnt off and there was still a little flame left, I threw a couple of drops of essential oil, of frankincense, into the mix and let the fire go out. And then went and took the salt. The bowl's going to be hot. I just put some cold water around it and then dumped it in the toilet. You can put it in the toilet or you can put it outside. I saw, a while ago, Savan Bomar was talking about your nail clippings and your hair clippings shouldn't go into the toilet for a lot of reasons, and maybe this has the same effect, but I think where everyone is, I think the process, I think you're okay considering all of the things that we put down the toilet. I mean, that's where we put garbage, right? So, yeah, take the salt and just clean out the dish, put the salt in the toilet, flush it. And then because that is an actual singing bowl, that's a Tibetan brass singing bowl. Afterwards, I hit it 3 times and played the sound of it. And that was the clearative cleansing phase of the morning. And I was like, well, I think I want to eat something. So I went and got these. I had these avocados. They were the big ones, I don't know. I never had one before because I was like, why are these so cheap? They must not taste as good. And well, they didn't taste as good. They didn't taste avocado-y. They just tasted like a lot of oil and mush. I didn't really like it. So I was like, well, I can hook these up and make them taste good. So I decided to make a bindi masala, which is okra and basically an Indian meal. You can look up bindi masala, BHINDI MASALA. Masala just means spices. And then I took that avocado and I fried that and put on a bunch of my own blend of Indian spices that I'd made a while ago. And what else did I put on there? Yeah, basically that was pretty simple. And then I got a bunch of rice there I made with ghee. And then I have there a bunch of one of the most delicious foods in the world, I think. The mango. And this is you see the mango lassi they usually drink after a meal, a salty mango lassi, which is mangoes mixed with yogurt and a little bit of salt. And it really helps with digestion. I didn't have any yogurt, but I really do love mangoes. And man, was this stuff good. Wow. People are really missing out, and people that are on this raw food kick and thinking that everything has to be uncooked. They're not. They really don't understand what a cooked meal does for not only spirit, but what it's doing for digestion and a bunch of other things. Yeah, we're going to lose some enzymes in the process, but when you put in, say, a yogurt or a living probiotic afterwards, you're not missing out on anything. In fact, you're gaining life because the cooking process, and it basically turns into like a baby food. I mean, think about it. Like, what do babies eat? They go mush. Like, think of Indian food. It's always more mushy. You're not getting a lot of, there's bread part of the meal. They call them papadis, which is basically a really thin cracker bread, but nonetheless, the meal is made to be digestible and to bring in all of the warmth to the body and all the spices, which are actually the lifeblood, which is the currency, which is the curry, which is the energy that runs through your system. And then this is what I was speaking about in the last one, like the cheat code for life, the cheat code for health and your diet is really get into Indian food. So I've got that plate of food there, and man, was it amazing. And then I have my copper cup full of ginger. It was a ginger, I don't know, something from Trader Joe's. This is pretty awesome. Some ginger drink then I had cherry juice in there as well. And some fresh squeezed lemon and lime. And then I got a little port wine over here. And man, was that delicious. What a fabulous meal. Like, oh, I mean, as much as, you could walk out there through nature and find yourself a fresh strawberry or something off the tree and go, that is magnificent and that is delicious. But there's just something about the aroma that you can fill up a house with, and the whole process of alchemy and being an alchemist and a chef and cooking, and the chemistry set that you have in a kitchen to actually create an alchemical creation for your temple, for your human body. Not just, as a chemist does chemical work outside of their body to like try to make some sort of potion that, or something out there. Well, this is something that you actually put into and offer your body temple that, chemistry is always thought of as like white lab coats and white things and salts. And then you look at this food and you're like, whoa, look at it's glowing and it's bright and it's an offering to this thing that I live inside of. Look at this skin, these bones. How can I nourish not only those things but my mind and my spirit? And the quality of a hot plate, a hot meal is something pretty incredible. And all of this, and I walk outside and there are just blue skies. And then I don't know, this is fun to do. Those are little orbs, let's say that. Those are a bunch of little orbs, how's that? Or just polka dots. And I got a bunch of new furniture coming, and oh man, my house is turning into quite the little den, the little Zen den. It's quite cozy in here now. So, I hope you enjoyed that little journey. So if you all ever want to partake and participate in, I'll give you one more time, I'll run through. It's really quick and easy to do. It shouldn't cost you too much to do the first part. You need some Epsom salts. You need some alcohol. Rubbing alcohol is just fine. The higher percentage, the better. You could use, you could use vodka. But again, 80 proof, 40% is not going to do it. It's not going to light on fire. So you need Everclear. And you light that, and you let that burn. Make sure it's in a container that is going to contain the fire. Don't be an idiot. That's lesson number 1. Don't be an idiot. Don't put this near anything that's going to catch on fire. That's why, it's easiest to keep it in the middle of the room in, say, a steel or metal, some sort of dense, heavy metal pot. And I put that on top of a silver plate, on top of that little buffet server thing that you see there. And that's basically how I did it. And then if you choose to, you can, the additional things, the additional resources would be any kind of herb that you think, any kind, this isn't, people talk about, oh, we just use sage. No, you could use lavender. You could use all different colors, flavors, and aromas. All of the, most of the plant life, most of the herbs that you probably even have in your kitchen can be used as, if you're going to cook with it, think about it. If you're cooking with it, that's putting food into your system. It's giving an aroma to the food. You're giving an aroma and a cleansing thing to your house. This is why kitchens are so healing and cleansative for a lot of things, because there's a fire in there. People always wonder why does the healing take place in the kitchen? Well, because you probably have a mama or grandma cooking in there, so you got that energy put into it. Why is grandma's cookies taste the best? Throwing that energy, that actual static charge, and what you might call is love or some sort of care into that food, which is an energetic quality. And then you add that with the fire element, and you're burning off things. and you're creating something. You're not only just you're not only burning off bad things, but you're creating something that is nutritious and delicious and wonderful. So when that kind of concept comes into the rest of your house, that if you can have a little fire somewhere, a little, this is the idea of having a tiny little altar and a little, even having candles throughout your house. Think of the difference here. Let me just, because I like to go on these little tangents here to give you a little more information of how these things work when we talk about negative and positive ions. If you go to a waterfall, people are happy there because what's happening is there's an electrical charge being created that causes negative ions to happen. So the waterfall is actually the pressure and the water hitting the ground. This is why it smells better after it rains. This is because it's actually cleaning things. So that's very clean and energetically charged near a waterfall. So in the same way in your house, if you use candles, well, here, there's a reason that you're going to use candle wax. You're going to use wax from a beehive. I did a video on this a long time ago, but let me just say it again. It's creating a different the structure and molecular structure of that wax is different. This is why it's shaped in hexes, and those hives are in hexagrams. And then if you look at paraffin and different kind of waxes, soy waxes, they're not as healthy. In fact, they're going to burn differently. And there's a couple ways you can notice this. One is that when you light if you put them side by side and it was in a dark room, you'd be able to see an aura around the candle flame. Even if you're not even into seeing auras, like, you'll be able to see this. You'll be able to see an aura, a circular aura around the candle flame of the beeswax, but not the soy wax. And so, and going a little further, what that's doing in the same way that you use you put salt in your room is because it's a cleansing thing. We're not going to get too far into salt caves and putting salt in the body and in the oceans and all that. But salt is good. Having like a salt lamp is healthy, because if you're going to put, especially if you're putting an electrical lamp in there. See, electrical lamps, there's a lot going on with what's coming off of that. Not only is the light not full spectrum, and it's coming through a different source, and you're getting partial vibrations, it's not as pleasurable to the eye, it's not as comforting, and it's also letting off a different type of energy. Whereas a candle is doing something completely different. It's a true source light. It's fire. It's the whole thing of the energetic quality of what fire is. Where electricity is if we look into electrical universe theory, it's basically a smaller version, a more direct, isolated frequency range, where a fire has a larger spread out. What you would call it like this. Here's how you'd say it: is a fire is giving you a fluid, the fluidity of water. When you watch flames go, there's a fluidity of it, and it's giving you a circular or a spherical or an idea of fluid energy coming off of that fire. But if you look at a bulb, it's a direct straight line, like just straight, and it's contained it's contained in something, so that the way that it's giving off light is static. It's in a very direct fashion. So think of it this way, in one more way. This is one more concept for you to realize. This is about fracturing energy, okay? If you have a screen in your window, the air that's coming into your house is being fractionated. If you open your window without a screen on it, you're getting the full essence of the fluid momentum of the air. But a screen is boxed up into squares, so you're literally taking away the energetic charge of what the wind and the spirit are causing, and you're dividing it up, and you're not getting the same type of energy in the house. You'd find out right away if you had a screen door that if you open it up, it's a whole different type of energy you get in the house. And in the same way, that's what a fire is like an open window, and what a screen door is like a light bulb in those two concepts. And so I know I took a little left-hand turn there, but I like to go on those little journeys and paths just so people can kind of get a more cohesive and expansive idea of why things are done. Not these are not just willy-nilly fanciful. Oh well, this is just, it just so happens this culture did it that way because they were scared of the boogeyman, or they thought that the earth was made out of. I mean, you know what I mean. This isn't these lineages and stories and history and heritage and understandings of ancient long-lived cultures. Their ways and reasons for doing things are based in sounds, what you would call real good science, like good science. But the way that they were able to understand and observe these things is they weren't necessarily doing scientific experiments the way that we do it now in white lab coats with double-blind studies, and they were going to other densities and other realms to be able to see what's going on. They were able to see what's beyond the veil, beyond the curtain, looking inside of, like, why does this work this way? How does this, you know, happen? And what we're doing now and what we've seen these days, and it's taking a little while to ramp up to where everybody is getting it and getting the downloads and getting the information from the scientists out there, is that these things are being proven. These things are, I mean, you can look into Greg Braden's work, you can look into Dan Winter's work, you could look into, there's a lot of people out here that have been speaking about this, or Masaru Emoto, you can get into his work. I mean, these are simple things, simple, observable, repeatable scientific experiments that they're showing you how it works and why it's done. And I'm giving you the kind of a brief rundown and explanation of why it is that a candle is better than a light bulb, why it is that an open window is better than a screened window, and you can visualize it and see it. And there's certain things that we can actually go to and say, hey, we can measure this. We can measure the fact that there's a negative ions coming off of this waterfall. That's been known for a long, long time. And why are people happy? Because they're breathing in electrical charge. They're breathing in clean air. It's cleaning up their body. They're breathing in what is spirit. So, hope you enjoyed this little journey into the mind of Zen. As always, do cool things, inspire the world, eat good food, fast if you need to, breathe a lot, and if you can't do all that, you know, at least eat well. You know, you can at least eat well, I think. I think you figure that out. Have a beautiful day. Talk soon, y'all.